Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you at the discussion organized by Euractiv Slovakia and the Polish Embassy in Slovak Republic, supported by the Polish presidency in a V4 group. My name is Irena Jenčová. I'm the Energy and Environment Editor in Euractiv Slovakia, and I will have the pleasure of moderating today's debate titled V4 Goes Hydrogen. Our discussion will contribute to the wider debate which is taking place right now in Europe about the role of technologies that will be needed on one hand to support the decarbonization and on the other the transition of our economy towards zero carbon in the years to come. And this is of course a place where hydrogen can play an important role. Now, to discuss this topic today, I have the pleasure to welcome a distinguished panel of speakers. But before I introduce them to you, let me first give the floor to the ambassador of Polish Republic in Slovakia, Mr. Krzysztof Strelka. Mr. Strelka, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For the second time this year, I have the pleasure to deliver some opening remarks during Polish Embassy's joint endeavor with Euractiv. I am really happy that we made it today again and managed to get so many interesting panelists on board. Many thanks to you all for your engagement. It is no secret that hydrogen technologies will be an important part of the overall EU strategy for energy system integration. Last year brought publication of several national and the EU hydrogen strategies, and this year will be crucial to bring together solutions and ideas to strengthen hydrogen sector in the EU. The rapid development of hydrogen technologies is accompanied by an increasing enthusiasm among experts in the commercial as well as in the public sectors. Only in Poland, investments in them are expected to amount to several billion zlotys. This new branch of the Polish economy is one of the government's priorities for the coming years. The same goes for other V4 countries. All of us are convinced that the hydrogen technologies not only contribute to the modernization of V4 countries' energy sectors, but also to the economic growth in the post-COVID pandemic time. In this context, I am really curious how V4 countries are prepared to grab this new opportunity and what is planned for the months and years to come. I hope that our discussion will shed some light on that. Thank you, and I wish you an interesting exchange of views. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for opening our event. Now let me introduce our speakers. Firstly, I'll start with Mr. Adam Guibourgé-Czetwertyński, Deputy Minister of Climate and Environment in Poland. Good morning. The other panelist is Mr. Petr Mervart, Plenipotentiary of the Minister of Industry and Trade for Hydrogen Technologies in Czech Republic. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning from Prague.
We have also with us Mr. Peter Blaškovič, President of the Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency. Good morning.
Good morning to everyone.
Then Mr. Attila Steiner, State Secretary at the Ministry of Innovation and Technology in Hungary. Good morning.
Good morning from Budapest.
And last but not least, Mr. Tudor Constantinescu, Principal Advisor to Director General for Hydrogen at the European Commission. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it seems we have a broad panel representing both national and European levels. And we will start this discussion with a series of quick opening statements from the speakers. And this will be followed up by the discussion, during which I will be also taking questions from the audience to the panelists. So in case you would like to pose a question, please just click on the Ask button and input your question there. I will also be using questions that have been sent by the registered participants in the discussion. 2 years ago, no one would have expected that we will talk about hydrogen as a key enabler of decarbonization in a wide range of sectors. Things have changed after the European Green Deal was approved by member states. And this was followed by launching of the EU hydrogen strategy in summer last year. The setting up of the regulatory framework has helped hydrogen to become a systemic issue in Europe. Within the framework of European energy investments in the so-called future hydrogen backbone network became one of the priorities during the last year. In December, the ministers of the member states agreed on billions euros for investments in hydrogen infrastructure. The European Commission promotes hydrogen as an important energy carrier that can replace fossil fuels in energy and transport in the future. The main advantage of hydrogen is that it does not produce any CO2 emission. However, currently up to 96% of all hydrogen is generated by chemical interactions in which fossil fuels, most often fossil gas, play a key role. So now we are at the stage where some member states already have the hydrogen strategy in place, while others are currently still working on theirs. European countries are now looking at the possible directions they can go in terms of hydrogen deployment, and also exploring new funding and investment opportunities for the hydrogen projects. The aim of today's discussion is to get a Visegrad perspective on the three main questions we have to think about when hydrogen is discussed. The first one is, how much hydrogen do we really need, and in what sectors do we need it most? This is really a quick question, as we know that there are some sectors such as steel and chemicals production, or heavy duty transport or long distance transport that are not possible to electrify. In this regard, we can also ask whether we're supposed to think about the deployment of the hydrogen also in sectors in which we have other alternatives, which might be less costly and more effective. The second questions we want to touch upon today is, how are we going to transport and distribute the hydrogen? So we will elaborate a little bit more about the infrastructure issue. And the third question, which is closely connected to the first and the second question, is how are we going to produce the hydrogen? What sources are we going to use for the production? So a lot is ahead of us. So without further ado, let me give a floor to Mr. Adam Guibourgé-Czetwertyński, Deputy Minister of Climate and Environment in Poland, for his opening remarks. Mr. Guibourgé, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot for the invitation, and thanks to Ambassador Strauka for organizing this discussion. I think it's indeed very timely, given the huge challenge we have ahead of us for making Europe climate neutral by 2050. And as you said very well, Irina, there is clearly a role there for hydrogen on this path. I don't know if you want me to address your three questions in my introductory remark, or you want me to leave that for the discussion?
I will leave it for the discussion.
Okay, so let me just briefly underline once again the key role of hydrogen indeed in this transition, but also the key role of innovations and around hydrogen inter alia, as a driver for recovery following the crisis and connected to the pandemic. And we are very aware of that in Poland, and that's why a significant part of the resources we have dedicated to energy and climate issues under the Recovery and Resilience Facility is exactly dedicated to hydrogen. In the early phase of the use of hydrogen in the market, the most important thing will be the cost of production. And we will need to work hard to drive down these costs. And in order to enable a competitive market to appear, we should be really open to breakthrough technologies of various kinds and not exclude any technology a priori, but rather focus on the ones that can deliver the lowest possible carbon footprint. And we don't know maybe of new innovations that can appear in the coming years. And our focus should be on promoting those technologies that can limit the level of CO2 production. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guibourget, for your intro. Now, let me turn to Mr. Peter Mervart, plenipotentiary of the Ministry of Industry and Trade for Hydrogen Technologies in Czech Republic, for his opening remarks.
Okay, so thanks a lot for invitation. And again, I would like to thank to organizers for, let's say, starting this event, because although we have a lot of discussions about the hydrogen, I believe that it's very important to have similar meetings and civil talks, and because we really need to introduce all these topics and to discuss different approaches. And I believe that there is a lot of common we have in Visegrad countries. And actually, probably I will touch a couple of these issues. The Czech Republic is a country which is just finalizing its hydrogen strategy, and it's nearly ready, and hopefully it will go for approval by our government in the mid of summer. But strategy is all the time pile of the paper, you know, and we really need to ask why we are writing these strategies. And after long discussions, we agreed that we have two strategic goals, which must be somehow covered by the strategy. And it's definitely the reduction of emission of greenhouse gases, because every kilogram of hydrogen which is used will replace some fossil fuels, and it helps to our environment, and it's in line with Green Agreement for Europe. And the second topic is stimulation of economic growth. And this, I believe, is also very important, because today we have today we have one economy which is mostly based on fossil fuels. And unfortunately, due to all that reductions, which are, let's say, imposed by European Green Deal, this economy must go down, must be shrinking. You know? And what we need to do is to find some replacement. We need to find another areas. We need to find some new industries, and we need to find some new ways how to produce the things which will replace that economy. And this is one of our main goals, to really make sure that the overall performance of the state is growing, and there is no big hiccups caused by the changes between different technologies. So if we talk about our strategy, it's based on the 4 pillars, and actually these 4 pillars well fit into your questions, which we will be discussing afterward. The main pillar is the production of the hydrogen. Second one is usage of the hydrogen. Third one is transport and storage of hydrogen. And there is one more topic we have to your questions, and these are the hydrogen technologies. So let me only say a couple of words to these pillars. Probably the most important, and this is very similar to my colleagues from Poland just said, is about the production of the hydrogen. We really need to make sure that we are able to find such a ways of the hydrogen production which are effective and which can work. What's probably very similar for all our three countries is that we have a little bit different positions than the countries in the south of Europe, because we do not have a surplus of sunshine and neither surplus of wind, probably with the exception of Poland, because you have access to Baltic Sea. But for Czech Republic, although we are putting the emphasis on the production of renewable hydrogen from renewable sources, we know that these resources are limited. And there is also an issue of economy, because if this is a very easy calculation, if I compare it with South Italy or with Greece, they have 2 times more hours of sunshine. So it means that if all the technology is the same, the cost of the renewable hydrogen will be at the end the half of our cost, and it's probably similar for all of us. So what's important is that we do not want to limit ourselves only to renewable hydrogen, and we are talking about low carbon hydrogen, and would like to check also some other options how to produce it. One of them is for nuclear energy, usage of natural gas with CCU. And another option is to use pyrolysis of organic waste or pyrolysis of natural gas. But unfortunately, none of these methods are not introduced yet, and there is a long journey to make them highly productive. In regards of the consumption, we believe that we need to have something like price break-even points, because we are replacing some fossil fuels. And the replacement of fossil fuels is different from their point of view. It seems that the easiest way could be with a diesel, because diesel has a lot of taxes and a lot of other costs which are associated with it. So if we would like to replace diesel by hydrogen, we need to get a price of hydrogen to about €4 per kilogram. On the other hand, if we are trying to replace natural gas, we need to go to the price of about €1 per kilogram of hydrogen. So these are, let's say, the boundaries in which we need to move. On the other hand, if we replace the natural gas by hydrogen, it's very easy from investment point of view, because it's only the change of the burners and it's relatively easy technological. On the other hand, to replace the diesel in the cars, it's much more complicated, because normal car costs, well, let's say not normal, the trucks and buses cost about 2 times more than standard trucks and buses for using a diesel. So each approach has advantages and disadvantages, and we are, let's say, evaluating them. And from our point of view, probably the easy starting point is to start with usage of hydrogen in mobility. And at the end, I would like to very shortly discuss the last point. It's a technology, because hydrogen is very new. It's very new for all of us, and we will need to have a lot of new technologies to be able to produce a hydrogen, as we already mentioned, to use the hydrogen and to transport hydrogen. So we need really to put a big emphasis on development and research in these technologies, and the Czech Republic definitely would like to play an important role in that, but definitely we would like to cooperate with all other countries, and we would like to be connected into the European value chains. And actually this is also a reason why we are sitting here today. To discuss how we can cooperate and how we can increase our added value in the overall hydrogen chain. So I'm looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mervard, also for mentioning the similarities among the 4 countries we have, which is, I think the similarities are natural because there are some wider common outlines, as the economies of Visegrad countries are in many aspects quite similar. Now let me turn to Mr. Peter Blaškovič, President of the Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency for the Slovak perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the chance to speak. Basically, I would maybe go and follow, continue on a words of especially my speaker before me, my colleague from the Czech Republic. I would say many similar things, which as well the base of all of the basically starting with the hydrogen is a national hydrogen strategy. So from the state of from the point of view of Slovak Republic, we as well are preparing, or we have it actually ready, or our national hydrogen strategy. It's just now in the final stage, so it will be. I'm not sure about summer. Maybe a little bit sooner than summer. It will be passed by the government. But of course, as it has been said, it's just a document which I completely agree that that's just the governing document with addressing different topics. I will not go more into details about the structure of our document. That might be a little bit different than from our colleagues from Czech. But I'm very happy to hear that, and this is, I believe, very good floor, where we see that in a V4 we following somehow the similar steps. Doesn't matter if it's a timeline, it's maybe adjusted, and some steps are sooner or later. But the general concept, I believe, it's the same. Those topics which you stated at the beginning, which is basically the deploying the hydrogen in different fields of the industry, because of course we're not talking only on mobility. That's very consumer, of course, oriented, and I believe that's very popular. But of course there are the industrial part of the hydrogen usage, transportation, production. I believe we will be addressing that in the later on, as you said. So I would not go into that for now. I would just, as mentioned, this national, as I already mentioned, national hydrogen strategy, which will be followed, of course, of something called action plan. The action plan, but will be passed through the government as well. So it will be as a second document, which is now under preparation, which will be the particular tasks with the responsible institutions. Because of course we believe that it's a very complex issue, and maybe I would go into issue in my speech which hasn't been yet in my presenters or my speakers before me addressed that much, which we have to look into very details. It's a legislation. It's a legislation, and a lot of things which are related to European norms and various standards. And this is what I believe we should be looking as well very carefully, and we shall be looking closely together because many of those technologies are new. If we're talking about the mobility, for example, which is the cars and the buses and this sort of stuff, that's not really a problem. I mean, we have already the hydrogen cars already even in Europe. I had myself pleasure to taste the latest model of one hydrogen car. I would not name the brand as I've been instructed before. However, so these things are available on the market. But however, for example, if we're talking about the infrastructure, which we come into later, which means mainly refueling stations or fueling stations, here we are somehow struggling with the lack of normatives and the standards. This is, for example, for us an issue, because another thing what I would like to say on behalf of Slovak Republic, meanwhile we're creating the national strategy and basically the how we will approach the hydrogen as a usage and all of the subtopics related, we're going to something what we call Project Ground Zero, where we are introducing and buying, and on behalf of the Ministry of Economy, which in this floor I'm representing somehow, we basically will be procuring and putting into the field and into usage the basic infrastructure for mobility. To be more specific, by autumn of this year, we would like to have already 2 fueling stations in the place of Slovakia, mobile, so we can like move them around the country based on the usage. We will be procuring a few of the cars, passenger cars, which will be then given to the key ministries, which is Ministry of Economy, of Environment, and maybe various other state institutions, because it's financed from the funds, from structural funds, so there's some limitations. We can use it for commercial sector, and we'll be procuring 1 or 2 buses, which will be renting mainly for the municipalities to have a trial and to promote this kind of transportation. So we already thinking even some like a particular steps in a field of the mobility, how to bring it more to the people, to create even the confidence. And of course, even by the confidence, I mean, of course, there are still many fears and various doubts about the safety of the hydrogen. So this is our mission, and this is where we stand as of now, and that will be from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blaškovič, for the overview of Slovak's plans of Slovak Republic in regard to hydrogen. Now let me turn to Mr. Attila Steiner, State Secretary, Ministry of Innovation and Technologies in Hungary, to get a final piece of the puzzle of the situation in V4. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much for the invitation. I believe that today's event provides a great opportunity to highlight best practices as well as share strategies to make hydrogen economy from concept to reality. In light of this, I'm very happy to announce that my government last week adopted the first Hungarian hydrogen strategy, which will be available in English on our website soon. I also agree that, yes, as colleagues already mentioned, that, yes, this is only a paper, but I think it's a very important paper because it gives us a structural overview on the value chain of hydrogen, and it identifies also some sectors where we may have competitive advantage and defines also the key measures and actions which we should take. We have also a national hydrogen technology platform, which was established last year, and this platform also developed a white paper, which is more a technological and descriptive document. And taking into consideration this white paper, we developed our national hydrogen strategy. And I think this shows that Hungary has also recognized the potential of hydrogen and fuel cell technology. But before having adopted the strategy, we have already taken significant steps to introduce hydrogen into the Hungarian economy. But now with the adoption of the strategy, we can give a new impetus to further develop this sector. In Hungary, hydrogen is also currently produced, but this is a gray hydrogen, and therefore on the production side, the main objective of the strategy is to build the basis of the high volume clean hydrogen production. And during the transition period, we will require low carbon hydrogen. So some of the key measures are aimed at partially replacing the gray hydrogen, with low carbon hydrogen, and especially with blue hydrogen. And the low carbon hydrogen will be supplemented by green and some other kind of decarbonized hydrogen produced by electrolysis. On the consumption side, we expect that the industrial sector will remain the #1 hydrogen consumer until 2030, and industrial hydrogen consumption continues to be concentrated in refineries and ammonia production. However, in the long-term period, we see green and other decarbonized hydrogen as the ultimate solution, and decarbonizing the industrial consumption will initially be realized mainly by using low carbon hydrogen as feedstock. However, green hydrogen will also be produced into the industrial market. As a further sector, which is in our focus, this is the transportation sector. By introducing green hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell technology is a key objective of our strategy. And we plan to encourage hydrogen fuel cell mobility until 2030 in 3 segments: trucks, long distance city buses, and waste collector vehicles. And the network of the hydrogen refueling station will be in the which should corridor logic, like pan-European transport corridors. And in this context, let me also mention that on 29th of April, the first hydrogen refueling station was installed in Hungary. The role of hydrogen in energy generation may initially be marginal in Hungary, but it is justified to launch some pilot projects on that field. But where we might have a competitive advantage in Hungary, this is the existence of the high-quality natural gas infrastructure. Therefore, we would like to build on this, and in this context, the hydrogen compatibility of natural gas infrastructure needs will be examined. And we expect and we also exploit the potential of natural gas infrastructure to be potentially the backbone for a European hydrogen infrastructure. To implement the strategy, we will have 6 priority programs: a green truck program, a green bus program. We would like to also establish hydrogen valleys to create small hydrogen ecosystem on a regional basis. We would like to examine the hydrogen highway potential to explore the potential of our existing natural gas infrastructure. We will have a blue hydrogen program for creating conditions for the production of blue hydrogen and thus to partially replace gray hydrogen. And of course, the accompanying research and development activity and educational support is also very important. And of course, we have to talk about international cooperation. And I think a very important tool is the establishment of the IPCEI project on hydrogen. Several Central European focused IPCEI projects have been prepared in which Hungary could play an important role. But I think there are still many tasks ahead of us. But of course, it's worth making efforts, and here V4 cooperation could have a significant value added. And I think the fact that hydrogen can help achieve the climate neutrality target by 2050, using it provides also other beneficial effects. For example, security of supply will also be positively affected as the use of domestically produced hydrogen But moreover, hydrogen will create also new markets and new business opportunities where Hungary sees also a great potential. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner, for your opening remarks, especially that you mentioned the issue of blue hydrogen and green hydrogen. We will discuss it later. We just heard very comprehensive overview of the current debate in V4 countries on hydrogen, and we heard a lot about the plans and possible projects. But the projects will go through only if the right and effective regulatory framework will be set up. So let me now turn to Mr. Tudor Constantinescu, Principal Advisor to Director General for Hydrogen, to get a view of the European Commission. How do you see the debate evolving so far, and what can we expect in the coming months? And maybe how the Commission could help to accelerate things up. The floor is yours, Mr. Constantinescu.
Hello, good morning. Thank you. Thank you also from my part for the invitation. I'm extremely pleased to be here with you today. Just a small correction, I'm Principal Advisor to the Director General for Energy of the Commission. The Commission doesn't have yet a hydrogen directorate, but has an energy directorate, and we aim hydrogen to become an integral part of the energy system, and to become also an energy carrier, which to be fully taken into account, because now it's less than 1% of our final energy consumption, and it's 95% fossil fuel based. But if we look at the long-term strategies for decarbonization, the objective of the Green Deal to make Europe the first continent carbon neutral by 2050, as our President von der Leyen has said, it's clear that we will need also to decarbonize not only the electricity part, the electrons part of the energy system, but also the molecules part of the system. And we see by 2050, in this effort to decarbonization of the objective of the Green Deal, that perhaps the share of electricity will increase significantly in the final energy consumption, about half, instead of 20% now, 23%. However, a large part of the final energy consumption will not be in the form of electrons, it will be molecules. And here we see, of course, we'll have biomass, we'll have biomethane, but we still have a big share which will have to be based on molecules, on hydrogen, on synthetic gases, synthetic fuels. Their share will have to increase significantly if it is to achieve decarbonization at EU level and to have a real carbon neutral economy. Now, this was in a way to introduce, in a way, what the role we see for hydrogen in the Green Deal. And the Green Deal came as a major project of this Commission, and basically trying to achieve decarbonization by 2050, and to ensure that we start investing now. We start investing now into the right solutions and accelerate the decarbonization, not leave things like in other scenarios that a settlement was thought after 2030, and avoid that over the next decade we make investments which may translate into stranded assets, for example, or into lock-in effects. So this was the main philosophy of Green Deal, to have this opportunity and to modernize actually the economies. And I think this applies very much to the Visegrad countries as well. I was very happy to listen. I'm pleased to be here with you today to hear that I knew about Poland's hydrogen strategy, of course, but I was very pleased to hear what Hungary has recently done and what included in the plans, to see also how Slovak Republic is planning to come into strategies in its final stage, and the same for the Czech Republic. I think this shows really that everybody is trying to tap this potential. And this is extremely important for us, because when we speak about Europe as a whole, it's clear that everyone has to find its way and to contribute to the general efforts of decarbonization. Now, it so happened so that we have made these plans under the Green Deal, and then we had to pass, and it's still not yet over, but now at least we see some light and some hope to get out of this sanitary and health crisis. And then the importance of economic recovery became even more stronger. So linking this economic recovery with the efforts under the Green Deal and the shift from longer-term investments to current investments to make more capex now in order to reduce operational expenditures later on, made now an opportunity to use actually also the economic recovery and through the investments foreseen under the Green Deal to accelerate economic recovery, so to modernize the economies. And this modernization of economy is particularly, I think, also important for the energy transition, also in the Visegrad countries, which are countries which still a high dependence on fossil fuels, high dependence on fossil fuels, and in some regions, high dependence on coal. It's clear that if it is to move towards carbon neutrality, we need to reduce this, and we need gradually to move out of coal. So hydrogen clearly gives an opportunity in this respect. Then is an import dependency, in particular import dependency of everybody is dependent on oil, but also on natural gas. Again, hydrogen here can offer opportunity for reducing this import dependency, and furthermore, to increase maybe the capacities for industrial development, because there is also need, again, in all the Visegrad countries, and not only in Europe, the infrastructure, the energy infrastructure is somehow aging. So it's a need to modernize the infrastructure and also to relaunch and strengthen industrial development. And these are big opportunities, and there are also big potential in all the Visegrad countries as well. And last but not least is a high potential for energy efficiency and renewables. It's clear that energy efficiency is overall in Europe the top priority of our energy policies. We need to moderate the energy demand. This is absolutely clear. But also the potential for renewables is significant. Now, this to set a little bit the scene, and I have to say, with the fuel cells and hydrogen joint undertaking, for example, we have made a study last year on what would be, based on national energy climate plans, the potential, for example, for renewable hydrogen and how many gigawatts could be installed in the various countries. Yeah, okay, the study is available, of course, on the website of the Commission. Now, it is in the range of 3.54 gigawatts, which identify, for example, for the Visegrad countries. And when I saw the figures advanced now in the Polish hydrogen strategy of 2 gigawatts, it's very much in line. If it is to supply renewable electricity for this, just for these 2 gigawatts, one has to see that it's representing maybe only 1% of the potential of renewables, for example, in Poland. So the potential for renewable is so much in all these countries and can drive so much also the hydrogen production that we see really big opportunities for the energy transition and big opportunities for industrial development and for modernization of the economies. And I think this is particularly important. Now, in this context, the strategies which we came in last year, and first of all, I would like to mention this energy system integration strategy, and which is, again, something important, and is important to bear in mind because brings in the dimension of overall energy system efficiency. Yeah, overall energy system efficiency, making best use of renewable electricity, for example, where we can use it for some e-mobility or for heat pumps, for example, in certain uses, but also to produce hydrogen and synthetic fuels for all the sectors, or to use it as feedstock as it was pointed also by some of the presentations I heard and in the plans I heard earlier from Slovak, from Hungary, from Czech Republic. So it's clear that it is a potential there to align on this. Then we have the hydrogen strategy where we have these targets for 2024 and for 2030, even 40 gigawatts. It's clear that this will have to met by the contribution and by the plans and concrete projects in all the countries. And here we link back to what I was mentioning a little bit before, the economic recovery, and where Europe now has put the most impressive budget, in total is 1.8 trillion, so it's a reinforced MFF, but also the recovery and resilience, where all the countries are working on the plans, and which represents now a very strong opportunity also to invest in technologies, innovative solutions in line with the strategies I mentioned, sector integration, in line with the hydrogen strategy, and in line, first of all, of course, with the plans for economic development, for transition to a low carbon economy of all the countries. For this, of course, we need to put also the whole regulatory framework in place. And as you rightly mentioned, before Elena, when introducing me, so we work now on renewable directive revision. We work on the energy efficiency for this summer already. And a big part of that will be to look at the role of renewable fuels and the role of hydrogen, for this important part of the energy system, which is not based on electrons. Of course, not neglecting that. And for this reason, last year we came, and this will be reflected also the potential for offshore in some countries, which is still very significant and untapped, and which, to all the interconnection of the internal market, can be of benefit to all member states, offshore renewables. Now, at the same time, we presented already last December the 10E, and we are working on 10E, and now it's clear that in this process, we'll pay more attention also to hydrogen projects. And first of all, we need to use, for example, for transport of hydrogen, the gas infrastructure, and the repurposing of the gas infrastructure will be encouraged. At the same time, and I know plans in Hungary are very good and very welcome for example, for large-scale storage of hydrogen. Plus, in some cases, electrolyzers can find their role and be financed in this area as well under CEF. Now, last but not least is the whole gas, hydrogen and gas decarbonization package, which is being developed also for the end of the year. And where again, we need to look at all these aspects. And as in red directive, we'll look at, first of all, to increase the capacities for production of renewable hydrogen. We'll also need to acknowledge and to properly reflect the potential for low carbon hydrogen in the regions and countries where this makes also economic sense, at least in a transition phase. But for all that will be important also to have a good system in place of certification, to make sure what we speak about and to have a guarantee that we really contribute to the climate objective as well. And this is something we'll need to continue to develop, and in which the public consultations have been already launched. We have collected now already information from all the stakeholders, and the work will be envisaged towards the end of the year. So this just to say a few words, and on this part, I have to say I noticed in most of the disregard countries a strong focus also on the transport sector, which is very good. But it's clear that there is a very big potential also on industrial applications. And this is something we need to really use more. Also to tap the potential offered by the existing gas infrastructure. For us, is mainly through repurposing. In some cases, depending on the situation at distribution event, can be also some blending. But all this will have also to be articulating into the overall market regulations, because in the end of the day, we need also to preserve the EU and internal energy market in energy, and to make sure we can make things for better. Let me also underline the dimension of research and innovation, which is very important, and is, I think, also for the Visegrad countries going to be more and more important. And I really would plead to encourage them to actively participate in Horizon Europe programs. We have the fuel cells and hydrogen joint undertaking, through which I was mentioning, for example, this study, but there are a lot of other projects which could benefit from taking a more active role. And also through which we have developed some platforms for project development assistance, so to make just best use of this. In case of Poland, there is already some regions which make use of this, but I think all the countries could actually benefit of this possibility. And at the same time, to strengthen and to make sure, I know there are already some plans in the case of Hungary and Slovak Republic, but all the countries can cooperate and make use of the best opportunities also of regional cooperation in the context of a European-wide development, including regulatory and project-based activities. So this is what I would say as a way of introduction, but happy to stay with you and to detail as appropriate, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing us the Commission point of view, and also for setting up a playground actually for the V4 plans. Let me now turn to the Q&A session, as we do not have a lot of time ahead of us. I will start with the question that has been touched upon by several of the speakers. but also has been brought up in the questions of registered participants before our discussion. And basically, it is about the role of gas infrastructure and gas, natural gas in the hydrogen plants. Most scenarios show that sustainable hydrogen will be available in limited quantities. It is a key decarbonization options, as you mentioned, Mr. Constantinescu, in processes for which the electrification and other solutions, such as material and energy efficiency improvements, are not available. So I think, just correct me if I'm wrong, Commission focuses on these like hard to abate sectors. This points to the importance of planning infrastructure to channel hydrogen to centralized demand areas, such as industrial clusters, as it reduces costs of transportation. So in terms of what you just said about that we're supposed to avoid some stranded assets or investment in stranded assets, how to plan infrastructure so that hydrogen can make the biggest positive impact. And the question from the audience, how to shape new policies and legislation, respecting the different starting points and technological neutrality in V4. We can go in a reverse order. Please make a short contribution because we have a lot other questions ahead of us. So let's start with Mr. Constantinescu, and then we will move further.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, of course, we need to make use of the infrastructure we have. This is a point valid for all countries. Now, but we know that we want to achieve the objective of carbon neutrality, we'll need to decarbonize this part of the energy system. We need to decarbonize the gases. The infrastructure we have in place can be actually of very big use. And we know that repurposing, for example, gas infrastructure for hydrogen is much, much more cheaper and more effective than, for example, building totally new infrastructure, new pipelines. So this is clearly an opportunity. I was mentioning before, and the IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, pointed repeatedly to the big potential for renewable, which we still have in Europe, and we have in Central Eastern Europe. So this potential for renewable has to be exploited. There is a potential for industrial development, for modernization of economies, for building new capacities and manufacturing capacity. So I think this is also something which, in all the plans, and this articulation of energy and industrial policies has to be reinforced also in, and deserves to be reinforced also in the Visegrad countries. So I think it's a very strong potential there. And through our policies, we try to support that. And also through the alliance. Now, at the same time with the hydrogen strategy, we launched the Clean Hydrogen Alliance. And I encourage, we have already over 1,000 companies across Europe participating. So it's a very good opportunity to identify, to build projects. And this project will benefit, will not all become important projects of common European interest. Some may go into this direction and be very helpful, but also other projects can find their role and contribute to the national, to the regional efforts, and will benefit in the end by certain forms of support. And the regulatory framework will have to support, of course, the decarbonization efforts, and we'll try through certification, but also through carbon contract for difference, and so to make sure that renewable hydrogen and low carbon hydrogen will be rewarded and will contribute effectively to the efforts of decarbonization. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steiner, you spoke about retrofitting of the gas infrastructure, and I think the situation concerning gas infrastructure in V4 countries is quite similar. We have gas infrastructure quite good, quite well developed. So do you have any, like, did you already identify how much of current gas infrastructure needs to be retrofitted to transport hydrogen, or have you identified the needs and costs connecting to the retrofitting of this infrastructure?
Thank you. Indeed, this is a very actual topic in Hungary when we discussed in the government the hydrogen strategy. As you mentioned, in Visegrad 4 countries, we have quite an extensive and good quality natural gas network, and this is especially true for Hungary. In Hungary, almost each household is connected to the national grid, and 80% of the heating in households are based on natural gas heating. So that could be a very valuable asset for us in the future if we got hydrogen. And I think this is also it's also important to highlight that in the last years there was significant progress in the Central Eastern European market integration and to create a real single market. And I think these endeavors shall be also carried on further, and we have to widen basically our horizon and think about to incorporate hydrogen. Yes, on your questions, we are not at this stage yet concerning exact costs and investments, but we have some pilot projects. And we have an interesting pilot project which is called Aquamarine pilot project, where we have an electrolyzer installed next to an underground gas storage. Since hydrogen has a completely different characteristics as natural gas, so therefore we are examining how we can store in an underground gas storage hydrogen and what is the optimal blending rate and what happens with the reservoir itself. And this is also true for the infrastructure because of corrosion of the network. So we have also some pilot projects for that. And based on the results of these pilot projects, I think we can estimate the costs and the investment timing which is required to implement our strategy. And I think here the European legislation will be crucial because the existing legislation was created in a sense where hydrogen was not in the focus. And I think here clear EU level definitions for acceptable gas quality ranges will be very important, and also blending and the injection issue and the mixing ratio of hydrogen and natural gas, that should be harmonized somehow, not to create any disturbances, but in the same time it should not be too prescriptive because there might be also some national differences. And I think if we are too descriptive in the case of an infant technology or infant sector, that might be also counterproductive. So we have to strike for the right balance to provide the guidance and to define some ranges, but in the same time to give also flexibility for the industry and member states.
Thank you. Mr. Blaškovič, Mr. Contastinescu spoke about the end use or the main end use of the hydrogens in the future should be in long distance transport and industrial usage. What are the plans in Slovakia concerning this? And also, when I go back to my question on infrastructure, Slovakia has also very extensive infrastructure, gas infrastructure. What are the plans in terms of retrofitting it to hydrogen transportation?
Thank you. We already, of course, addressed this issue, and of course, with the main gas transportation infrastructure providers in Slovakia. I mean, the main backbone and then the distributional network. there are now under current examination of what needs to be done in retrofitting especially the older pipelines in order to be able to transport the hydrogen or the mixture, of course, the mixture of natural gas and the hydrogen through the infrastructure. However, of course, what is a very important issue where I would like to address here is, of course, we are in intensive communication with the national regulatory authority, because, of course, I mean, even we know as to electricity, it's the same in the gas distribution network. There is a regulatory, some regulatory rules applies. Therefore, even as you know, there was a couple of years there was unbundling of the natural gas providers to have a distribution network separately, and the trading company was separate. So we have to talk even of the regulatory issues, and this is related even in electricity to, of course, to find some very I would say not competitive, but very motivational or motivated oriented model in order to support the hydrogen, for the transportation of the hydrogen. So mainly some of the fees which are now, of course, much quite higher in the terms of electrical infrastructure than the gas, but to try to discuss that if we can find some model which this would be at the early stages, let's say maybe decrease. Of course, this is a very complex question. I don't want to go into that, but we are in discussion of that. But I just wanted to point out that even this aspect needs to be fine. So because it's not only that, again, technical issues, because I mean it's at the end it's a piping system, just to be simplified. Yes, retrofit is needed because, as we know, it's a hydrogen, it's very highly corrosive material, plus, of course, as to leakage as well. So in some parts we identified that the hydrogen, because of the small molecules, would be it's a high leakage, so there would be big loss of the gas by transportation, by the time of transportation. So we're looking into that issue. Your first question, I believe it was like, what are another, let's say, the field of usage, of course, except mobility. Of course, we're looking into the second, for me, the second most potential usage of the hydrogen. What is basically the heating, and for the energy, like, yes, the heating of either the residential areas or even like some industrial parks. So this we're examining. So far, let's be. I have to be honest. I mean, the normal, like somehow the hydrogen gas burners or H2 burners for heating, it doesn't seem to be very energy effective currently, and it's not so far quite welcomed. As to the mixture, I'm not sure about these technologies, but definitely we're looking into this area, because mobility can consume or can be used quite amount of the hydrogen, especially, of course, in the public transportation, we believe, not individual transportation, but the public transportation, and later on, of course, by trucks and or vans, or basically industrial use of the transportation. So basically, we're talking about the energy using for particularly the heating as to the usage.
Thank you. Mr. Mervard, you mentioned that you were quite hesitating about the potential of renewable energy for the hydrogen production. On the other hand, European Commission in a long term counts on the green or renewable hydrogen. How this could be reflected in the plans of Czech government? Also, when we are focusing now on infrastructure, how would you deal with this?
Well, actually, don't take me wrong. We are not hesitating about using of green and renewable hydrogen. Definitely, it's priority number one. What I said is that the resources are limited. And the second topic is that we will have a problem with the cost of Czech renewable hydrogen. Probably we can have a good beer. So a Czech beer will be better and cheaper than Greek beer, but definitely the Greek hydrogen will be cheaper and the same quality as Czech hydrogen. And but actually it relates to your second question about the pipelines. Because frankly speaking, if somebody is able to bring hydrogen for €1 to the border of the Czech Republic, definitely we will, let's say, take all his hands and we will consume all that hydrogen. So it's not a problem from our point of view. Today we are importing all the natural gas. We have, let's say, some sources of natural gas, but it's a very small one. And it doesn't matter if we are importing natural gas or if we are importing hydrogen. So we are only, let's say, opening doors for other options. And I know that if I'm discussing that with the guys from Austria, it's not a very easy discussion because they are putting a big emphasis on renewable hydrogen. But nevertheless, this is a matter of fact. Another option is that we can wait till that low price renewable hydrogen will be brought to the Czech Republic, but with this approach we can kill the whole hydrogen strategy. We cannot wait. We are keen to do something, and we need to do something just now. But going back to your second question about, let's say, the usage of hydrogen pipelines, definitely this is an option. We are, let's say, in a deep discussion on that, but there is a lot of, let's say, conditions and a lot of limitations. The first one is that we have also very dense network of pipelines, but unfortunately all of these pipelines are under the contract, and the first contracts will be ending after 2030. But let's say 2030, it's in 7 years, so it means that it will come soon, but definitely we are not able to use it just now. But I believe that is similar situation in other countries as well. The second topic is that there really must be the agreement between countries, because even if Slovakia will repurpose their pipelines and Czech Republic will not do that, the pure Slovak guys will have a pipeline at Kuti, but they need to stop it because they are not able to send the hydrogen to us. So definitely this is a big field for cooperation. And we are doing some testing, and other colleagues already mentioned that there is a lot of regulatory frameworks. Frankly speaking, in Czech Republic, still hydrogen is not used as a fuel. Also, if we put some hydrogen into natural gas, it's impurity. It's so even if you put it there, you cannot charge it. On the other hand, from the technical point of view, it's a little bit easier because we have a lot of experience, because in the past we used so-called coal gas, which has been produced, and the content of hydrogen in some cases was about 50% in that coal gas. So it means that the technology is somehow ready and we have some experience with that. And I'm talking with the people from the Czech Gas Union, and they are preparing some tests. And frankly, there is a very close cooperation with Slovakia, with Slovak Gas Union. And I must also admit that the Slovak guys are a little bit ahead of us because they made some of the tests even now, and we are, let's say, building on their experience. Yeah, so definitely we are the transport of hydrogen via pipelines is important topic for us, but it's not the question of today, it's question of tomorrow, but we need to be ready for that. And yeah, and immediately if somebody is able to make hydrogen for €1 and bring it by the tubes to us, everything will be easy. But unfortunately, I think that all my colleagues will confirm that we are still not very close to the price of €1 per kilogram of hydrogen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Merver, that you brought us also the need of really coordinated approach to the infrastructure in Europe. Now I would like to turn to Mr. Geburze-Czerwetiński, because when we are talking about the renewable sources for the hydrogen production, I know that Poland is planning to build offshore wind farms in the north, and so how do you see all the infrastructure issue we were talking about today, having in mind that Poland will soon, or maybe soon, have this big opportunity to produce the green hydrogen, actually?
Yes, thanks for that question. Indeed, because of the plans we have for developing offshore wind, we see a great opportunity to combine that with a development as well of electrolyzers that would help stabilize the grid and make better use of that renewable energy that would be produced. But at the same time, I would say that, as was underlined by my colleague before, I mean, today, none of the technologies that we have is able to produce the hydrogen that we need at the cost that would make it competitive. And frankly, I don't know, and I think nobody knows, whether it will be this or that technology that will be able to provide the hydrogen that we need. What we know is that we need a technology that is zero emission, because if we want to decarbonize, if we want to achieve our goals to be climate neutral in the EU by 2050, then we need to have hydrogen that has as little emissions as possible. But whether it's going to be technology A, B, or C, or it's maybe a technology that doesn't exist today, I think nobody knows today. So I wouldn't like today to say it should be more of this technology or more of that technology. Just look at the level of emissions, and this is for me the key. And then on the use of infrastructure, yes, it makes a lot of sense. I think it was underlined by Tudor for the Commission. It's in general where the use of that infrastructure, that gas infrastructure, repurposed or retrofitted to use hydrogen, it will be much cheaper than building new infrastructure. So everywhere where it's possible, I think it's something that we should do. But at the same time, and I think this is the third aspect of this challenge, I wouldn't say that the use of hydrogen blended into the gas network is a better option than other use for other sectors, for instance, industry, for instance, long distance transport. So I wouldn't preclude at this stage, and I wouldn't have like a fixed objective of having that quantity of hydrogen used in this sector, because again, I don't know today what will be the better technology to decarbonize these sectors. And I wouldn't want to decide a priori today that all the hydrogen we produce should go in sector A and then leave nothing for sector B, C, and D to decarbonize, because maybe the decision we will take today will be the wrong decision, and we will have a better option to decarbonize these sectors. So I think we should be very wary with the targets that we set there. And maybe one last comment, also one word of caution, jumping on what my Czech colleague was saying about the being very open to have anyone who can deliver a cheap hydrogen to the borders of the Czech Republic. I think it's true that we should look at cost, and I've underlined it in my introduction already, and that's a key parameter. But I think a great advantage also of that shift to hydrogen is to reduce our energy dependency, our reliance on imported fossil fuels. So if we end up building a new system where we make Europe dependent on external suppliers of hydrogen, I think it's not necessarily a change for the better from a perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, from a perspective of energy security. So I think this should remain an element in our reflection of how to reinforce the production capacities and the energy independence of Europe while making that shift to hydrogen.
Thank you. I would like to now pose two questions for the panelists. Both were mentioned by Mr. Guy Bourget. One is about financing and about technologies. Because there is a common agreement that there are technologies of the future, like carbon capture and storage or carbon capture and use, also hydrogen technologies, but also the renewables we want to be deployed. Although everyone agrees that these are the technologies of the future, we are not entirely certain where this money is coming from, or where the money will come from in the future to finance the development of these new future technologies. We heard about tremendous amounts of money we need for the green transition, but when we look at the amount of discussions that we had over last 10 years, let's say, about carbon capture and storage and what was achieved in reality, it is not very encouraging. So maybe we should really discuss who is going to pay for this, as these are not in current stage commercial projects. And how do we resolve this? Could you please comment on this? And the second question is about the demand side of the problem. How to boost the demand for hydrogen in a hard to abate sectors? How public policies, for example, or some regulation could help? It's up to you now. Please pick up any one of you from you the question you would like to comment on. Okay.
Happy.
Mr. Guy Bourget?
Yes, happy to jump in as first. I mean, this issue of financing is obviously a big challenge, and it's, as with every innovation, it's an area where there is a big role for public support to play to help fund the research and the innovation that we need that will make those technologies available at a competitive cost. And there, I think it's clear for us, and it has been included. It's one of the priorities in our recovery fund. We plan to spend 800 billion euros on hydrogen-related projects in Poland because we see the need for public funding to make available those technologies that can produce hydrogen with almost no emission, or as little as possible. That's the first thing, need for public support. And I think the example of CCS that you used is a very good example of how if we can learn anything from history and try not to repeat the same mistake, not bet everything on a single technology, because we have indeed in the past allocated almost all the resources of the Innovation Fund to CCS related projects, and it turned out none of them went through. And I think we just made the wrong bet. And this is, for me, another argument why instead of choosing a technology, let's choose what we want from that technology. We want that technology to be zero emission. If companies will come with different solutions, it's all the better for us because it increases the chances to actually find that technology that will be able to deliver hydrogen at competitive costs.
Yeah. Okay, so probably I can just follow because our way of thinking is very similar. Maybe I would like to stress one more thing. Sometimes when I discuss it with the people have a feeling that the hydrogen is very cheap, you know, because at the very beginning, you have a sun, which is free of charge, or you have a wind, which is free of charge. And afterward, you have to transform it somehow, and you will get the energy. But if also it's a box, and with the input, which is free of charge, so also the output should be free of charge. But that's not 100% true, because that box is relatively complicated and it's pretty costly. You know? So at the end, the price of the hydrogen is mostly for that processing, for the generation, storage, compression, and transport of the hydrogen. You know? But nevertheless, you need to have these costs, you know? Because you need to use the hydrogen in a particular place and not in the place where it is produced. So this is, let's say, the first issue. Definitely, as was said, we can support the consumption of hydrogen from 2 points. Either we are putting the money in capex, in investments, so we are supporting these investments, and we are somehow trying to decrease that cost of that machine, which is in the middle, or we can put some money into operation. If I oversimplify it, if you have a burner and you would like, or you need to have a heat, and you have the options either to use natural gas or to use a hydrogen. The hydrogen seems better because there is no CO2 emissions. And even the technology is very easy, but the problem is that you have that difference in the cost for that €8 or €6 per each kilogram of the hydrogen which is burned. So definitely we can turn tomorrow, not everything, but a lot of these burners and to hydrogen technology, but somebody must pay that difference in operational costs, you know? And in this case, you are really burning money in that. You know? And this is our common goal, to make sure that the hydrogen which is produced will be as cheap as possible, and that the gap between the fossil fuels and hydrogen will be decreasing and decreasing. You know? So afterwards, it will we will be able to use the hydrogen on commercial terms. And one more comment to that technology neutrality. Definitely, and it was exactly as Adam said before, we do not know which technologies will be successful. We are putting our bets into these technologies, and we are trying, let's say, to guess which of these technologies have the biggest potential to fulfill the goals. You know? And we, at least in the Czech Republic, we did not create any special hydrogen fund. Maybe it could be a problem. But if we are talking about low carbon transportation, our funds are to electromobility, to hydrogen mobility, and to all these kinds of the mobility. You know? So we do not have a special program only for hydrogen. We have the programs to support this low emission mobility, and we would like to keep it now.
Thank you. I have one special targeted question for Mr. Blaškovič from the audience. European Commission has been declaring support of investment in green hydrogen projects. A chance to get incentives via Innovation Fund, Modernization Fund, or Resilience and Recovery Fund is in fact extremely low. Are there any plans in Slovakia to make investment incentives really available?
Yes, it's related to the financing question as well in general, what you raised. Definitely, of course, we have currently two major, let's say, tools for financing this kind of project, which is recovery plan, as was mentioned earlier, and of course the classical, I would call it the classical structural fundings from the EU, which is now just coming the new programming period. So in both of them, we we allocated some amount for supporting schemes directed to various fields, which are either for infrastructure, either for production, and or generally for the projects related to the hydrogen. So what I would say, yes, commenting on my colleague from Czech Republic, yes, generally yes. Obviously, there are two ways how to financing as an investment or as a operational cost. I believe in this early stage, we would going from the investment, we would be more focusing on the supporting the initial investments, because there are new technologies. It's a new approach in general. So I believe that this shall be done with the help of the financing from the EU, either structural funds or the recovery plan, where of course this is the target. I hope I addressed the question which was raised by this particularly, or there was something. If you can repeat again, if I miss anything from that question, because I would like to answer it in a proper way, because this was my general, let's say.
Are there any plans in Slovakia to make investment incentives really available? I think the point of view of this question is that there are really really high level investment or high level, projects could apply for. So maybe how to make the investments more approachable.
Yes, definitely they are. So this is I'm just confirming that we going into the way of investment, of initial investments, dotations, schemes, which is either for the infrastructure by the producing electrolyzers or fueling stations or infrastructure, some dotation for the cars, like we used to know from the basic classical car dotations, for the electrical car dotations. So some of these for the various fields, there will be this so-called incentive schemes, and so yes, we thinking about that. Now I cannot really comment, because this is under negotiations currently within the Slovak government and all the necessary stakeholders about what will be the allocations for each of the topics. So yes, but definitely the answer is yes to that question. We do think about that.
Thank you. Mr. Steiner, could you please elaborate more maybe on the demand side of this problem? Do you in Hungary plan something like involvement of, for example, of the municipalities or something like that, like to boost the demand for the technologies?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think the demand side is very important, since what we have identified, that the demand side is driving the whole hydrogen sector, and basically supply will follow the demand in this perspective. Where we see a great potential in Hungary, this is the transportation sector, and we have currently a wide-ranging support scheme for electromobility, for electric cars and electric buses, and we are now thinking about to expand the scope of those programs and support schemes to hydrogen. So I think that could deliver a big boost for the industry. And as I mentioned, we just opened the first filling station in Hungary, which is of course not enough. So I think the filling infrastructure will be critical for that. And I think here hydrogen can be complementary to electricity, since we see bigger potential for hydrogen in heavy transportation and trucks and buses. But of course, we will see. I fully agree that we don't have to decide at that moment that what is the right way forward, but we have to see how the whole industry will develop. And maybe a second field which will be very important for us, this will be the electricity storage in forms of hydrogen. And I think that could create quite a big boost for hydrogen demand in the future. We have quite ambitious renewable plan in Hungary. We would like to reach a 6,000 megawatt solar capacity by 2030. 1 year ago, we used to have only 1,000, and we already reached 2.5 thousand, but I think this is a significant change. And of course, additionally, we have the existing nuclear power plant, which produces baseload electricity. So therefore, the storage of electricity also intraday, but also on a longer term between seasons, I think that could create a huge demand for hydrogen, which seems to be a good opportunity to solve this issue. So I see these two sectors where there is a big potential in Hungary. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Constantinescu, hydrogen infrastructure projects are now eligible for funding from the so-called 10E infrastructure through the IPCI projects of common interest. Probably it will be also possible to develop the hydrogen infrastructure from the Just Transition Fund, as well as we heard today. There are some plans for the financing the hydrogen projects from Recovery and Resilience Plan, and also from the cohesion funds. How will the Commission evaluate, when it comes to hydrogen, the kinds of infrastructure projects or storage projects or production projects that will be eligible for funding, and those which are unlikely to win an approval? How do you make the distinction? Where is the line?
Yeah, I think first of all, thank you. It will be a process, as you know, it's a transparent process of analysis and with clear criteria for all the funds and all the sources of funding. There is also this principle of no significant harm, which has to be observed in all cases. As you mentioned, there will be different sources of funding. But let me first of all say that what we aim, okay, we'll need support for some projects, and the EU funding should drive and make possible a number of projects. But in the end, what we aim, first of all, is to make a regulatory framework, a legislative framework, a predictable framework for investments, which to make sure that the money will flow also into the direction of these projects. So we need to build a business case. This is the most important. Now, they will be supported, and I would say the first big opportunity is indeed the Recovery and Resilience Fund. Yeah, so this will be clearly a big opportunity, that also the structural funds and member states will have to develop the partnership agreements, operate programs in discussion with the Commission. And then whatever is not in line with the objectives of the Green Deal, whatever is also in line with the national energy climate plans have to be observed. So all these elements will be analyzed in order to fit into the requirements also for the EU funding. Same goes for Innovation Fund, where it was the first call. And in what regards Just Transition Fund, yeah, you know, this is again something which is mainly aimed for supporting the most vulnerable regions, now being core regions in transition, for example. And here we'll have to very much look into the opportunities to reallocate the resources and the human resources to reconversion, and also in combination with all the other funding to support investment which are aligned also with the objectives of the Green Deal, and to have an impact on stability in terms of economy, even stronger economic recovery and sustainable economic recovery. So it's along these lines, and in the different processes now, speaking about TNE, of course, you know, the process with the working groups and selection of projects, and not all the projects will be, of course, there are not so much funds there to finance all the projects, but giving a certain status will facilitate and will definitely support the development. But I cannot now say all what it will be, because, as you know, we have tabled a proposal in December last year, and now this is being discussed.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I wasn't clear enough when I was posing the question, but I've got some help from the audience, and so maybe could you maybe elaborate a little bit because on the nuclear possible nuclear resource for the hydrogen, how the Commission is perceived this this option, which is very viable to Slovakia, for example, to Czech Republic and Poland as well.
Now, I think we have to refer to the hydrogen strategy, and it's clear that at EU level, what we promote mainly is renewable hydrogen, and we do this on very solid ground, because if we want to reach carbon neutrality, it's clear that renewables will have to move into the center of the energy mix. And if you look, for example, even for 2030, with a 55% greenhouse gas emission reduction target, we estimate about 65% of the electricity in the energy mix at EU level will be renewable based. And the renewable based means mainly viable power. So it was mentioned also by Mr. Stein and by Mr. Attila before, the importance of hydrogen, for example, to integrate renewables for energy storage. So this is clearly something that we see here, the analysis from the IEA already today for example, for the potent renewable electricity at over 24 hours, hydrogen becomes competitive with batteries at 50 euros per megawatt hour, maybe at a bit more, 2-3 days. But this will change. And here we have an important opportunity also for sector integrations and to support transport or to support industries in decarbonization. And speaking about what you were referring before, the demand, yeah, it's here. Let's take the case of Poland. Yeah, it's a third consumer of hydrogen in Europe, 1.3 million tons. So to decarbonize this, what is used already in refineries, in fertilizers industry is a big potential, yeah, so to tackle this market, and it is mainly with renewable hydrogen. In the strategy, we mentioned, of course, also other forms and low carbon hydrogen, and we pointed here to hydrogen from natural gas used in deforming, or from the electricity system with low carbon sources, where would eventually nuclear enter into the picture. But if it will be mainly to support hydrogen, it will be mainly to support hydrogen for achieving the carbon neutrality objectives, where renewable has a major role to play, while enabling and eventually through some carbon contract for difference supporting other forms of low carbon hydrogen based on their carbon footprint. In particular, when it comes, we don't hear you. I think you're muted. So mainly about from natural gas with CCS, yeah.
I'm sorry. We are almost at the end of the discussion. Please, now a quick word from each one of you to sort of summarize the main ideas that you would like the viewers to take away with them from this debate. But maybe could you also shortly comment on where you see the possible opportunities for cooperation regarding the hydrogen technologies, or what are the main sectors that in which we four countries could cooperate in this regard. So maybe we can stick to the order from the beginning. So first we'll go Mr. Geburze-Czetwertyński, and we will then continue. So go ahead, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the discussion we had. I think for me the key is to remember why we are doing that for. We are doing that for achieving our climate objectives. So let's keep that in mind when we set our policies, to make sure that we favor all technologies that can deliver a zero emission solution. That's what we are looking for. And let's do this by supporting innovation and supporting production capacities in zero emission hydrogen, but also by boosting demand for hydrogen, regardless of its origin, as long as it has as low emissions as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Merwart?
Yeah, from my point of view, hydrogen is a very important tool how to achieve our Green Deal goals. There is only a few of options, and hydrogen is one of them. And in regards of cooperation, definitely we need to cooperate in area of transport of hydrogen, because there is no option that we can skip one country. And definitely there is a huge field for cooperation in hydrogen technologies, in research and development, because this is so new area and there is so many of questions, and it has been mentioned by everybody from our group that we do not know which technology will be the best one. So therefore, we really need to check all the options and share our information and help to our companies. And this is definitely the field for cooperation. And we already start very deep cooperation in that area already. So I'm looking forward that we will continue in that direction.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blaškovič.
Thank you. As well, I completely agree. The main the cooperation where I see is basically not only in V4, but basically within the European Union in general, to look into cooperation of development of the technologies, because this is important to be to as has been said, not only energy from the point of the energy, as my colleague from Poland said that it's a goal to be not independent from the energy sources from another countries or either outside of European Union, from this perspective even. So this is even related to the technologies, and I believe Europe is ready for that and shall be focusing in development of very highly skilled professionals and highly skilled and focused the industry which is focused on these technologies, and therefore we need the cooperation, because we are different countries of various experiences in various fields, and the common interest shall achieve this goal. And I believe very good example, if we are talking, want to be more even specific, is the result of the this project of the common interest. The project has been mentioned, which has been already submitted. I would just say that in Slovakia, we had just 20 applicants and 15 had been passed for the commission for the evaluation out of them, so quite successful. And where I believe, and part of it, it's a matchmaking in a V4, which even happened some I believe weeks ago, not a month. And this is where we this is already the platform where these things are exchanged. So therefore, looking forward for continuing in these activities.
Mr. Steiner, your remarks.
Thank you, and thank you for organizing this discussion. I think it also showed that actually all of the V4 countries somehow think in the same direction. And I also agree with the previous speakers that actually to fulfill the 2050 climate neutrality objective, this is a huge challenge, and I think we will need all of the available technologies to fulfill this very noble objective. And I'm quite confident that hydrogen will play a significant part in that. And I see also here clearly some areas for potential cooperation among V4 countries. I think transportation sector or the gas infrastructure, how it can be used for transporting hydrogen, or to establish something like north-south hydrogen transportation infrastructure that might have a significant potential, and therefore regional cooperation could play a significant role in the future to establish a well-functioning single European hydrogen market. Thank you.
Mr. Constantinescu, your final remarks.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, of course, also thank you from my part for the invitation and for the insightful discussion, from all what I heard from the other panelists. Very interesting. And what I would say is that, of course, we need to keep a EU-wide approach, both in terms of regulation, in terms of emerging hydrogen markets, in terms of infrastructure and projects. I think this is very important. And I think keeping this EU-wide approach, the V4 countries will find an important role to play into this European approach because of the high dependence currently on fossil fuels, on coal and gas. And if gas can help actually the transition from coal, hydrogen can help to modernize the economies, can help create jobs, decarbonize the carbon-intensive industries, and further develop the industrial development in these countries. So also hydrogen can help with the storage of renewables and help more capacities on renewables to be developed and to help a cost-effective, in the end, decarbonization of the region and contributing to the European target. And for the regional cooperation, we think is also extremely important. More active participation in research and demonstration will be very much welcome, and equally in the Clean Hydrogen Alliance to bring the whole European dimension to this journey and to this energy transition in which hydrogen will have a role to play, an important role, we see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. We reached the end of this discussion. I would like to thank our panelists for a very informative and insightful discussion and contributions. With us during the discussion was Mr. Adam Giburze-Czetwertyński from Poland, Mr. Petr Berwart from Czech Republic, Mr. Petr Blaškovič from Slovakia, then Mr. Attila Steiner from Hungary, and last but not least, Mr. Tudor Constantinescu from the European Commission. Also, many thanks to the partners of the event, which is Polish Embassy in Slovak Republic and the Polish Presidency in V4 Group. I think this is not the last time we are discussing the future role of hydrogen in reaching the carbon neutrality. So next time we will be maybe talk about more particularly about the concrete projects and investment that could help us in the path to zero carbon economy. Have a very good day.
Yeah, thanks a lot. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.